It is 9:02. We're 2 minutes late. Somebody dock our pay. I'm Jim Check. With me, Ian Burns, managing editor out there in the nation's capital. I am here in sunny, cloudy Okanagan here. And if you could brighten my background, that'd be great. I don't think it's that dark out there. But big day, Friday, February 13th. Hey, scared? Any black cats running across the road? Anything? Today's
we don't
the
need
day.
any more bad luck, do we?
February 13th. February 13th, if anybody is superstitious, I usually think it's one of my better days, February 13th. We'll see what happens with the show, I guess. We thank everybody that's here, that's come here. We really appreciate everybody. We'll hit you with the headlines first, though. Double loss for Canada, failing climate goals, and failing economy. Politicians descend to Tumbler Ridge to attend candlelight vigil. Gold for Canada still elusive, even as the metal counts rise. Canada needs to move faster as Americans look to reignite Venezuelan oil. Climate change narrative being buried in the world while Canada chooses to elevate it. And either Canada's the smartest nation in the world or the dumbest when it comes to climate agenda. Canada's big bet on EVs has many scratching their heads. More virtuous waste by the government. Still no answers on the abuse of the charter. Miller says, beware of illegitimate media. He must be talking about us. Liberals say boycott Twitter as censorship ramps. Nothing like a good censorship thing. Who does Mark Carney answer to? Is it China? Sam Cooper thinks so. Supply management, the food professor, weighs in. Government employees getting lots of CBC propaganda time. Imagine that. They don't want to go back to work. And who is paying for this GST break? Want to guess? And taxes going up in April. Better get your drinks in now. Muslim observances now outnumber Christian days on federal calendar. Over $1 billion for illegal immigrants has Canadians frustrated. And that's just for the healthcare. Criminals allowed to file refugee claims and stay here while they wait in this huge backlog. U.S. economy up, inflation down. Canada in slow death spiral. Well, that's ominous, eh? Carney won't take help in trade negotiations. That's a head scratcher as well. Some Americans in the Democratic Party seeing past the rhetoric and being tired of being wrong. Another big name claimed by the Epstein files, though. All that and a lot more. We do have a lot more now, too. So you're going to get more here than you're going to get on CBC and the other propaganda networks. You're going to get some of the truth here. You're going to get some of the fraud, waste, abuse, corruption, censorship, all that kind of stuff. But we do appreciate the audience, too. We let you communicate. We've got lots of members now. And this is some of the comments here that were shared with us. And one guy says, you guys are our Obi-Wan. You know that reference there? It's a Star Wars reference. Yeah. When Leia sent a message to RD-D2 that you're our only hope. Thank you for that. That's high praise, and it's going to be tough to live up to, but we're going to do our best because we work for the readers, not for a party, not for either party. We answer to Canadians, and that's what all media should answer to. But they've lost their way. Somebody says we should interview Moose on the Loose. We're going to reach out, see if Moose on the Loose wants to come on the show. Why not? We do have a big interview coming up, though. Michael Cooper is going to join us, MP. Michael Cooper is going to join us. He's very vocal on the Brookfield conflicts and very vocal on the gun laws in Canada. Michael Cooper, MP, is going to join us on Tuesday at 10:30. So we're going to put that right in the middle of the really big show. Well, we're going to start off here. We're going to lead with the victims of the Tumbler Ridge massacre. And this is the images of the 5 children and the teacher there.
That's the mother, not the teacher. That's the mother of the suspected murderer. Yeah.
Oh, no photograph. Sorry. Yeah, I got that wrong. There you go. We put up that next thing and it says there's Abel. I'm going to get some of these. Ezekiel, Kylie, Zoe, Takara, and Shonda is the mother.
No, the mother is Jennifer.
Jennifer,
Emmett
sorry.
and Jennifer. Those are the they were found in the
Shonda is
hole.
the one that we don't have the picture of.
Yeah. Oh, the police didn't release one anyway. They are around, but
Oh.
trying to keep it just to what the police, because they're going through the police, the families. So it just seems, you've got to try and do right by them, I suppose.
So a lot of politicians are headed up to Tumbler Ridge there. That's Premier Eby is going to be there. Lisa Bair there with the Minister of Education, Josie Osborne, and then including Trevor Halford, the leader of the opposition, and MLA Jeremy Vallioret, as well as there's a contingent coming from Ottawa as well. Mark Carney will be there, David, along with David Eby. And but more sad news out of this, though, is more information about the suspected murder. Jess Van Rootselaar has revealed, including that he lived in a nomadic lifestyle because of his mother's move between Newfoundland and Labrador, Grand Cache, and Powell River. Was also found to have created a video game in which the character ran through a mall and shot people. The teenager's estranged father, Justin, has also released a statement saying he carries sorrow that is difficult to put into words.
And I didn't include it in 5 things, but the New York Times, as is often the case, I'm angry about how bad Canada's media is, but I'm also embarrassed, and I feel like you all should be embarrassed if you're even a little bit patriotic about Canada. But the New York Times, which is in New York, USA, has written a very long article detailing it's everything that I knew. I knew this right away. Most people probably knew this right away because it was on X. It was around. It was online almost instantly before the suspected murderer had even been named. But the New York Times has documented all that stuff, and as I mentioned, things like the SKS carbine, out of date gun license, lots and lots of medication, and also illegal drugs like mushrooms, cannabis, habitual cannabis use. Reddit, which we talked about. We're talking about the suspected murder here. Compulsive Reddit use, and also the use of a website featuring beheadings and all kinds of disgusting violence, which kind of splintered off from Reddit a few years ago. So lots of Reddit all over it, which isn't unusual, I have to say. We've talked about how loathsome that website is. But yeah, the long list of just everything, really, all the detail. The Canadian Press, that's the one that I linked to in 5 things. Canadian Press has got a little bit, but if you actually want a comprehensive breakdown, you're going to have to go onto the New York Times. Such is the Canadian media, sorry to say.
Very sad. Absolutely very sad. When you look at those young faces, when you look at those pictures of those are just children. They're absolutely children. And kind of imagine the grief that those parents are going through right now. And hopefully
it's just completely unbearable, isn't it? Even it's hard even to look at them, frankly.
Hopefully the people that descend upon that town there are respectful. Canada. We're going to move on to Canada. A couple more medals. I think 3 more medals. I think our total now is up to 7 medals. 3 silver, 4 bronze. And that was the best day. Thursday was the best day yet for the athletes in Milano. They jumped from 4 to 7 thanks to a trio of medals. But we're still looking for gold. Gold's still elusive. The opening ceremonies, Mikhail Kingsbury came close as you possibly can without gold, while topping the podium. The 33-year-old finished the men's mogul tied with Australia's Cooper Woods with a score of 83-71, but unfortunately Woods had a slight edge in the tiebreaker. So close but no cigar. But in Canada now sits on the leaderboard there in 15th spot there with no gold yet. The United States sits there with 4 golds, 7 silvers, and 3 bronzes. And Norway sits at the top of the pile there. I mean, they got an advantage. They live in the snowbank. Look at Italy, though. Italy being the powerhouse there.
I mean, they do have quite a lot of beautiful POW in Italy, don't they, in the Alps?
Giorgia Meloni is going to strap on the skis, maybe. Or maybe she's going to suit up for the women's hockey team.
Oh, don't think so. She's more of a kind of, you wouldn't think it looking at her and listening to her, but she's more of a nerd, I think. She really loves Lord of the Rings and lots of like fantasy literature and things like that. She's quite a lovable nerd, or not lovable, depending on what you think of her.
I like listening to her talk, like speak, like her speeches are full of like, she gets right into it. She's a very powerful speaker. The LNG Canada nearing full capacity just 6 months after shipping the first cargo. Remember, LNG, no business case for LNG. Justin, where are you? Justin. Canada calling Justin, and Mark Carney for that matter, no business case for LNG. And this is after 6 months after shipping its first cargo, and that's according to market analyst Kepler. Export volume was accelerating. The facility holds significance for supply flows into key East Asia markets. Separately, Enbridge today reported $1.95 billion in profits for the fourth quarter, up from $493 12 months earlier. It has a backlog of $39 billion. Looks like there is a business case for LNG after all. You think?
And it also looks like there's capital lying around waiting to be deployed. Because that backlog will be in a considerable amount of, considerable extent, that backlog will be down to regulations, trying to get over the various, trying to get through the hoops that are put in front of these companies. But it is so, I mean, where is Justin? Oh, well, we know where he is. He's in Montreal in his new chateau. But where is he on this? When is he ever going to explain why he said what he said about LNG and there being no business case? When is he going to admit how wrong that was? And I have to say as well, he was even more wrong then than now, because that was at the height of the energy crisis, when it was like people were just like the German state, the Japanese state, they were willing to literally build it themselves, fund it themselves from the government directly. I mean,
Justin is not alone in the blame. Let's not forget that Mark Carney was the economic advisor. He was part of those decisions. He was part of the decision to kibosh the Northern Gateway pipeline as well. Chrystia Freeland, all of them there. Karina Gold saying to landlock Alberta's resources. Mark Carney with the book value says we need to keep 80% of it in the ground. Justin Trudeau is not alone in the blame. Again, what Ian just said, the Koreans were there, the Germans were there, and the Japanese were there begging, literally begging, and we're going to pay for it themselves, really, begging, and they were told there is no business case. Lo and behold, there's a business case. And guess who took those deals that we turned down? The United States of America. I said, thank you very much, Canada, for...
Uncle Sam.
Uncle Sam says, we'll take
and
those.
Uncle Sam has now pinned down loads of European countries into long-term deals. Great times for Uncle Sam, frankly.
Well, you control energy.
When he said that, there's no business case. Yeah. When they say no business case, when Trudeau said that, we should just interpret that and present it accurately. There was no political case. That's the reality. Because it would have gone through the St. Lawrence, and he didn't want to alienate Quebec.
And the sad thing is that just think where Canada's economy could be right now. We wouldn't be at the mercy of the Americans right now. We would have such a stronger bargaining position right now. We did this to ourselves.
Not just economically, geopolitically. All this chat about being a middle power. If we had a lot of European and Asian countries buy the old you-know-whats on energy, maybe I would be willing to listen to that, the idea that Canada is a middle power. But no, that didn't happen. The only country that we sort of have a chokehold on with energy is the United States. But for obvious reasons, we don't want to mess around with that because they have an even bigger chokehold on us.
Well, I like to want a big shout out for a couple of people here. Somebody just bought Tucker5692 just bought 20 gift memberships and doled them out. And prior to that, Valiant Goat bought 5 gift memberships and handed them out. We so appreciate all the members and joining the membership of Thinking Canadian. As a thinking Canadian that can still think for yourself and not eat the CBC pablum they dish out, we welcome you. And a big kudos to all the thinking Canadians that are part of the group. Thank you, Tucker, for doing that. Independent media, it will be the breakout year in Canada because I think people have had enough of the narrative. Watch what they do. We said that before, just as soon as that thing happened in Tumbler Ridge. We said, watch what they do. Watch what they do. And we've seen them do so many things and so many narratives. They just push narrative after narrative. Defend. We're going to show you later, too. We're going to show you how they defend the Liberal Party constantly and do not hold power to account. We'll do it here. We're going to try and get as many people on as we can in interviews as well. Like I said, we got Michael Cooper coming on Tuesday at 10:30, and we're going to ask all the Liberals to come on too. We already know the answer, but we're going to ask. We have a request out to David Eby right now. Still no response a few days later. He usually responds though, so won't be negative with him yet. And while this is going on, the big thing, this pipeline, like they're kind of like, muffling. We've been almost a year now where nobody knows what was going on, but also what's going on at the same time with what Trump did to Venezuela there. Here's some proof that things are moving ahead in Venezuela. A lot of people are saying, that the financial media in Canada say, oh, well, it'll take 10 years. Listen to this. So listen to this clip here.
I think in the first year, we'll see pretty significant 30-40% growth in Venezuelan oil production this year. You can continue production growth rate at a pretty good clip. Venezuela does have the largest proved oil reserves, which is a technical concept, much larger than the U.S., but yet we produce 20 times more oil than Venezuela does. So yes, are they underexploited resources? Absolutely. The people of Venezuela are underexploited resources. Here's people with a lot of technical education, a lot of passion for their country that have been living in dire poverty. 8 million have fled abroad. We got to change the game in Venezuela for a win for Venezuelans, a win for America, a win for our hemisphere.
And you'll notice where he was doing that interview.
Barcelona.
So they're on the ground. That's the energy secretary there. They're on the ground.
Yeah. Global travelers in. Welcome to you.
It's all about energy. It's all about energy. And just think, like what Ian said, we could have a lot of nations. We could have, what do you want to call it, soft power, hard power, whatever you want over them because we'd be supplying them energy. Yet we choose not to. We choose not to.
I am quite interested, though, in this claim. I mean, obviously, I'm not an oil expert. I believe our good friend, Global Traveler, is an energy expert. Maybe he can give his view. But I'm very interested in this idea that Venezuela has the largest reserves in the world, because I've always, I've heard that and I've regurgitated that myself. But the more I look at it, it's a bit questionable, because that's like, where that comes from is it was self-reported by the Venezuelans when they were, not governed particularly well. So I am quite interested in whether that is indeed true. But nonetheless, it is massive. It is a huge amount of oil.
And it's similar to the crude that comes out of the tar sands there. So, I mean, they're set up for it.
Which is very useful for lots of reasons, isn't it? It's not just oil is oil. It's like that is a very specific kind of oil that's used. I think they use it in aviation, don't they, quite a lot, and other things. And for feedstock to produce certain other chemicals and whatnot. So it actually has like a really important niche in the world. And it's Canada, Venezuela. I think Iraq has some, and Russia. Those are like the big boys when it comes to that kind of oil. And obviously Canada, of those countries, has been forever really the only sort of reliable partner. So pretty huge if the Americans can pull this off. Not for us, though. Very bad for us.
like, share, subscribe, and put this on your Facebook right now as we're live. That would be, I wouldn't put that comment up on the screen there. That one there, maybe not so much, but hey, try to keep it clean there. And the Desert Fox, he's just like, sure, good enough. No sausage roll for the Desert Fox today. Here's the EPA administrator, because America has basically shut all their everything that was on the climate agenda. They just rolled it back. Listen in on the EPA administrator, Lee Zeldin.
That the talk of climate change is a hoax.
When you're putting forth tens of billions of dollars to pay off your well-connected former Obama and Biden admin officials and Democratic donors, wasting taxpayer dollars, yeah, that's a problem. Trillions of dollars of regulation and costs on American families, that's a big problem. It has been a con job of using this for more power and control. For example, they push environmental justice. They appropriate $1, and rather than remediating an environmental issue with it, they want to spend $1 on an activist group to train other activists to come be activists and advocate in D.C. to get more money so that they could advocate. Like, you try to wrap your head around the way the money's wasted.
These waters run deep. That's what I take from all
That's
this.
good. Well, we've had an activist group here that the Canadian media portrays as a First Nations group. What's it called? Coastal First Nations? How much airtime they got here blocking pipelines here in Canada.
But I'm sorry to say that according to the media that you fund every April when you pay your taxes, the Local Journalism Initiative, I can't even remember what the outlet is called, but you're far right now because you've just said that. So congratulations. Welcome to Nazism, I guess, because you criticize a lobby group.
Well, we're going to have Mark Miller on later to tell us what's wrong again. Mark Miller. All this going on, like we still pushing climate agenda here in Canada at the detriment of our abundance of wealth. Like we have an abundance of wealth, and we're going to show you some stuff in the economy later. And some really big economists in Canada starting to speak out on this. And we've got this EV dream, even as most people are scratching their heads. And again, I drive an EV and I love EVs, but it's not going to work for the bulk of Canada. Not right now. But we're just going to jam it down people's throats. We're just going to jam it down your throat. Tim Hodgson, we showed you this the other day. The automotive industry is electric, and our government is betting on Canada's to seize. He says this, the automotive industry, the future of the automotive, but nobody seems to be buying it other than Tim Hodgson and Tesla. But they don't want to deal with Tesla. So it makes no sense at all. It makes no sense at all. And here you go. Honda joins Stellantis, GM, Ford's, and other taking multi-billion-dollar write-downs on EVs and scaling back EV plants. So there's Honda. Remember Melanie Jolie just the other day said that 70% of production now comes from Honda and Toyota in Canada, and then we're going to double down with them. They're not building EVs either. They delayed their plant for 2 years, the Honda EV battery plant, and that means like maybe never. Toyota makes a hell of a hybrid. They make good money on hybrids. I drove their recent BZ. They called me up and asked if I would test drive it. I drove it. Drives like a Toyota. It's a great Toyota. I mean, it doesn't compare to, it's a great Toyota. Like if you want to drive an electric car, that's a Toyota and has same feels like a Toyota. That's a great car. But they don't sell very many of them. And that's a fact. And the first thing they said to me when I went there is like, oh, it takes the NACS charger now. Takes the Tesla supercharger system. Meanwhile, Tim Hodgson is bragging that Ottawa is going to spend $84 million to install 8,000 new EV chargers. Do the math on that. Do the math on that. Just take 84 million. Maybe Ian can do that while he's sitting there. 84 million divided by 8. What do you get?
Sorry, I was just looking at this. There's been another explosion of memberships, but it's 10,500,000 is the answer.
There you go. So for an EV charger, 10 million. What? $10 million? That can't be right.
It is. How many times have we seen things like this where you just do the little calculation and you're just like, no. Like, you know, when they do subsidy per job, often with EV plants and things like that in Ontario. It's like, hold on, $2 million per job.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I have to do it myself because, I mean, I'm an accountant and that number doesn't make sense to me. Oh, yeah. Crazy, man. Absolutely crazy. Stellantis, from our partners at Stellantis Canada, said the sale of the Ontario battery plant was due to poor EV demand. Yet, Canada is going to lead the future. Like I said at the beginning of our show, either Canada is the smartest country in the world or the dumbest. Which one is it? The smartest or the dumbest? Which one? We're still pushing climate agenda. We're still pushing everybody drives an EV. Everybody's moving away from it. And I think EVs are great. Like I said, I own a Tesla and I've been driving one for 2.5 years. But they have application. If I was still driving a truck, I'd be driving my 1-ton diesel that I've had.
And you would feel like a much bigger man as well.
We're getting out of my truck. To fall out of my truck. It was a lifted 1-ton. I'm sure a lot of people on here can relate. I had a lifted 1-ton AT4, beautiful truck. Hard to get into
Trucks
park
are
gates.
cool, I must say. I rented one for a couple of weeks, or my dad did, and I ended up driving it. It was an F-150, and it is very cool. And it's good to feel like an aristocrat on the roads, isn't it? Looking down on the paupers.
I tell you one thing though. I had a Corvette as well. People tailgate you because they just seem to not like Corvettes. People will tailgate you. They'll be right on your bumper. You know what they don't tailgate? 1-tons. Because there's a hitch sticking out of the back. And they're just like, you want some hitch? Have it. Take it. Tucker, thank you for 20 gift memberships. Wow. Crazy.
40 then from Tucker in total.
Wow. Great job.
Big Tucker. We need to give him an honorary sausage roll or something.
Throw him up there. Throw up the golden sausage rolls for Tucker.
Give him the golden. Give him the option of.
Oh, we're gonna get it here. Slow on the take today. Usually, as soon as we say sausage rolls, it's up. The gold one. Oh, well, give him the cheap one then.
Just anything, any sausage roll.
There you go.
Fire all sausage rolls.
But here's how performative this government is. The Department of Environment spent 10 years and $1.4 million building a net zero garage in Whitehorse that it neither needed nor finished. The project was commissioned by then Environment Minister Catherine McKenna. They just love to virtue signal as proof her department could lead by example. So they built this garage that wasn't needed, neither did they finish. Costs ultimately exceeded initial estimates due to the length of time taken to approve and advance the project and other compounding factors. The completed facility remains net zero ready. It's not net zero yet because the solar panels have not been added to the project because it's unfunded at this point. The project had been under construction, a garage. The project had been under construction, ready for this, for over a decade and was included in the departmental capital plan in 2017, 2018. And McKenna said that this was a model for the nation. This kind of is a model for, this is a model example for the Liberal Party. A white elephant of waste of taxpayer dollars, incomplete, and not needed, incomplete, not needed, and an absolute waste of taxpayer dollars. There you go. That is the model right there. A 2,271 square foot garage, heated storage up in Whitehorse there. And managers acknowledged that there was already garages available for the equipment.
Managers should have acknowledged that they were in Whitehorse as well, probably, shouldn't they? That would have been the first thing to say. Hold on, we're in Whitehorse. Do we need a net zero garage here? Does that make any sense?
And if that wasn't enough, listen to this. Auditors did not disclose how much was budgeted for the installation of those solar panels, though. But a larger, get ready here, 9,300 square foot net zero warehouse with solar panels was built at Rideau Hall. So where we're going to build a skating rink as well, at a cost of $8 million. $8 million on a luxury barn And they said they need to look at that so we can put a stop to this. No federal audit was made public on the one at Rideau Hall. Don't forget that our Governor General wants her own private skating rink at Rideau Hall because she said she's going to invite kids over to skate sometimes. She needs a private skating rink at Rideau Hall. And a garage.
She said, no, it was going to be open now and then, wasn't it, I believe?
Yeah.
The peasants will get a sniff now and then.
All this money spent and wasted. We listened to the EPA administrator there from the US. And all the money in the States where they wasted billions and billions of dollars to build chargers that they never built any chargers. And there's billions of dollars missing. Stephen Guilbeault still hasn't answered to the allegations of $250 million allegedly funneled into his companies. No paperwork provided. And then if you look at all the money that Brookfield has taken and its big investments in net zero, and then the potential conflicts of interest with CCUS and all those things, nothing being answered. All that, and here's an independent assessment from on climate change. This Canadian Climate Institute's independent assessment of the federal government's 2025 report. Canada is not on track to achieve any of its climate goals. Perfect. It says the country is likely to fall even further behind its targets than it was just 2 years ago when the last report was published. So it's not going to meet its 2030 targets, and it's not going to meet its 2050 targets.
This is by the way, just if you're interested, this is your think tank. This is your climate institute because it's funded by the federal government. I should just say the Liberal Party, really, at this point, shouldn't I? They fund this. And one of the things that they wagged their finger about most vigorously was the removal of the consumer carbon tax. And also the EV mandate, actually, was another thing that they mentioned. So there you go. How dare you enjoy lower inflation and cheaper gas? We're destroying the planet.
And heat in your home.
Yeah. And it's not needless to say. I've got to stop saying that it's needless to say. It's needful to say. I have to say it because apparently the elite in this country is unaware. It does not matter what Canada does, one way or the other, whether we go all in on fossil fuels or abandon them entirely. It has essentially zero effect on global emissions and global temperatures. Just remember that. We should take out a billboard or something with that on. Because it's just the fact. It's the most important fact in this whole debate, and it's never uttered. It's never engaged with.
Global Traveler had a couple of points in there, and I missed them there. He said the oil reserves in Venezuela, if anything, are underreported. The quoted reserves are based on older numbers when the oil fields had international participation with modern surveying. So he's saying that they're likely underreported.
But Global Traveler also said that Canadian sausage rolls look like a rear end. I'll use a nicer term. So I don't know if we can take him seriously anymore now that he's said that.
Well, they don't look that good. If you pull them up there, can you put them up there? Yeah, I can see the fact. But we do thank Laura Kay and her partner there for sending them all the way from Dawson Creek there a couple times. We're really slow on the sausage rolls today. Like, boom, there it is.
Yeah, what's it doing? This is food that, I don't know if it originates in England, but it's very popular in Britain, I should say, not just England. All British food kind of looks disgusting. I'll admit that, but is very tasty. That's the rule. It might look horrible, but it tastes lovely. Just like a Yorkshire pudding. As I've said, how weird does a Yorkshire pudding look?
Well, I'm not having any haggis, I can tell you that for right now.
Well, haggis, that's something different entirely, isn't it? Yeah.
Here's the chart, though, this next chart. This is how far off they are from their goals. If they're to meet the next one there, if they're to meet these goals, look at how much we have to cut. Basically, huddle up because there won't be no energy. Just think if we have to make that drop in that period of time, because look how slow it's been.
But can we just, you wrote this title for the show. You say failing the climate goals, failing economy. Can we just emphasize how ridiculous this situation is, where we fail time and time and time again to meet the Liberals' targets, and yet still punish our economy enough that it's stagnant or even in recession. It is really the very worst of both worlds, somehow existing in perfect harmony with each other. It's just demented. It's the worst possible path.
Yet we have to ask, who benefited though? Who's winning in this? Because the Canadian economy losing, that means the Canadian taxpayer losing. And climate change is not winning. You know what I mean? We're not doing anything for the climate. Everything losing. But who's winning? Who's winning? Brookfield had some record profits. They're winning. Stephen Guilbeault still won't answer to the $250 million. We've seen other people make out like bandits on this climate stuff. We've seen it in the US.
Mark Carney's own words. Some people are making massive amounts of money from this.
Yeah, he said that.
He said it himself.
He said it himself. We can make a lot of money on this, but not the Canadians. Canadians suffering. I mean, Ian was just in England. He was in the future there. He was living in England and literally had to choose when he's going to turn his heat on in the house because he couldn't afford it. And he worked for the government, and his wife works in healthcare, and they couldn't afford heat.
Indeed.
That's the truth. Those are cold, hard facts.
And they have to give money out in England, bear in mind. They have to the government has to hand money out to old people, although there's slightly fewer old people now, but they give it out to pensioners, like senior citizens, every winter so that they can turn the heating on a little bit, because that is how energy poor Britain is. And it is absolutely as a consequence of their gigantic stupidity and their insistence on wind farms and things like that, while still having gas as the baseline power, but they just turn it off and they and then it's windy, great, we're getting loads of energy from wind, then the wind stops and they have to turn on the gas fired turbine, which is obviously very expensive if you just turn it off and on all the time. And also they have to buy it from Qatar and all the rest of it. I mean, they are just so stupid. I almost I don't know where to begin with how stupid they are. It's almost like they want to punish the British people for something. Like it's almost like it's like they've committed a crime and this is their sentence.
Global Traveler said the sausage rolls in Austria, Germany are better on the street. And I've had the sausage rolls. They're a little different than the pastry ones there. The sausages in Germany are crazy good for sure. They call them different. They call them different, something different though, don't they? Bratwurst. No.
Yeah, currywurst is very, very good, which is just like a hot dog with curry.
No, I've never had the curry one, but I just had that. But yeah. But listen to this. Here's your friend Ed Miliband there from the good old UK explaining. This is it's almost like the Liberals and the Labour Party have the same explanations that they look at when they're trying to explain how tax doesn't add to the energy costs or inflation. Listen to it.
Energy companies in this country are taxed at 78% on energy profits. That pushes up prices too.
No, that's wrong. Look,
it's not 78%?
It is 78%, but it's not incredible.
Whereas obviously regular corporate tax is 25%.
It's really important to make this point. Oil and gas is set, the price of oil and gas is set on the international market. The reason why...
That's the raw commodity price, in the same way that the prices of batteries is set on the raw, the raw commodity price.
It's not set by the tax rate on UK companies, is what I'm saying. It's set by the global price. You see,
I understand that, but you're saying that tax rates don't impact pricing?
I'm saying that in relation to oil and gas, they don't, because the truth is that the price for our oil and gas is set internationally. And let me explain. Let me just, if you just let me make the point. Why did prices go through the roof when Russia invaded Ukraine? Right, well, our prices went through the roof, even though we imported a very small amount from Russia. That's because whether the gas was coming from the North Sea or internationally, it was priced on the international market. That's why we're in the grip of fossil fuel markets controlled by others, petrostates, and that wasn't about the UK tax rate. The UK tax rate could have been cut or higher, and it wouldn't have made an impact.
That's a separate point.
Yeah.
The floating price of commodities is a legitimate but separate point. Another point for why this country has unbelievably high energy prices is that we tax our energy companies.
No, you're wrong. I'm really sorry, but you're wrong about that because the price is set internationally. I'm really sorry, but that's not correct.
OK, well, let's put commodities aside. If you increase taxes on supermarkets to 78%...
It depends whether it's...
If you increase taxes on supermarkets to 78%, What would happen to the price
Well,
of food?
it depends.
What would happen to the price of food?
It depends whether it's a domestic market where the price is set
It doesn't
domestically.
depend. This is a globally unquestionable factor about economics. You're right that your point also applies. You can't flatly deny my point.
I am denying your point when it comes to the question of these internationally set prices. That's the point I'm making.
If you lowered
That's good enough.
the tax,
It's just he just literally say that increases in prices don't add to inflation. Okay.
Would you be at all surprised to learn that his father was one of the most famous Marxist intellectuals in Britain? Because he's arguing like Lenin or something like that, isn't he? He's in a separate universe. And yet this man is one of 2 or 3 people in the Labour Party that's expected to replace Keir Starmer when they finally stick the knife in his back, whenever that happens. It's and the guy, I think he was the journalist there was so flabbergasted that he couldn't even find the space in his mind to highlight another point, which is the extremely high carbon taxes in Britain. So it's not just taxes on those companies, because that's what they're talking about, you know, BP or whatever. If they operate in UK waters to extract gas, they're taxed at that gigantic rate. It's not just that. It's also when that gas is sort of deployed in Britain, there's a carbon tax or a whole series of carbon taxes on top of that. But that, you know, he didn't even, I mean, unless he did, but from what we saw, he couldn't even get that out of his mouth, because I think he was so astonished to see that he was being lied to by this ridiculous man.
Well, King Richard was off on the Crusades. Who ran the show there? Was that King John and the Sheriff of Nottingham?
You're saying he's King John? Well, who's Richard then?
Because I'm just saying, like, somebody needs to come back and rescue England, because some people will actually believe Miliband there. They'll actually believe what he's saying, that it doesn't add to the cost of inflation. Like, he's arguing like you're intellectually stupid. And the reporter there can't even get his head around it, because he's like, could he be right?
Well, he's thinking the same way that whenever you're gaslit by somebody who's so confident in themselves, and they say something like, at first you are kind of like, what? Like, have I got this wrong? Have I been wrong all these years? But no, obviously he's not wrong. And the thing that they're ignoring as well is the sort of law of commodities, the law of international trade and capitalism, which is obviously you get a better price for a commodity, even if it's priced internationally. You get a better price for it if it's literally on your bloody doorstep. Of course you do, because it costs money to transport it. It costs money to cross borders and things like that. So if that gigantic tax wasn't on British oil production or hydrocarbon production, clearly more would be explored. He also, by the way, has completely forbidden any new exploration or any opening any new oil or gas fields in the North Sea, which is another factor. But if those taxes were off, and if he allowed them to go and do what they want to do, then there would be increased supply. And merely because of proximity, that would bring prices down. Of course it would. Not to mention that, you know, there's a reasonable amount of oil and gas in the North Sea. And if they really went hard on it, they could actually affect at least sort of regional prices, because there would be increased demand. That means that there'd be less need to bring it from Qatar and the United States. Obviously, like, God, this is just stupid. This is the sort of thing that you tell a 12-year-old. I almost feel like I'm just wasting my time even speaking about this, but this man is one of the most powerful people in Britain. It's just so depressing.
Shelley's saying that they're paying $1.19 a liter in PG right now for their gasoline. And then Derek says it's $1.50 in Peterborough. Canada should have cheap gas. Cheap gas. Absolutely cheap gas.
Yeah.
Great. And you're going to see the wealth of a nation climb as energy gets cheaper. And we can see examples throughout the world. Cheap energy equals prosperity. Cheap, reliable energy equals prosperity. Restricted, taxed energy equals a cratering economy. We can pull them up, like we can just show you economy after economy. Canada suppresses its natural resources. Many economists in Canada now say Canada's economy on life support, tailspin, recession, failing, all kinds of things.
By the
And
way, when you said that, since everybody is talking about gas prices, just since we're talking about the UK and how stupid they are, right now, a litre of petrol, as they call it there, is $2.43 roughly. Just an idea. If you you thought Canada, you often hear Canadians say, oh, it's so much cheaper in America. Just imagine for a moment the life of the average Anglo trying to make ends meet, trying to warm their house and fill their car with gas. It's just, and we still have the picture up there. That's the guilty party. He's right there.
And even as bad as that is, we still have no response on the Freedom Convoy and the abuse of power and privilege invoking the Emergencies Act. The lower court said it was abuse of power and privilege. It should not have been invoked. And the appeals court said the same thing. And let's listen to what Farm Credit Corporation did when they handed over information. Let's listen to this.
In C-15, when the Liberals invoked the Emergencies Act, which was now found to be unconstitutional by the courts, we were told initially that Farm Credit Canada did not share information on its clients and farmers who may or may not have participated or provided financing on a peaceful protest. But on further research and ATIPs, we found out that FCC did indeed share a list of farmers and clients who may have participated in that peaceful process with the Liberal government. Frustrating that we were told wrong information initially. Is there anything in C-15 that would ensure that FCC as a Crown corporation would not share private banking and account information with the government should they again be active in an unconstitutional crackdown on Canadians?
As far as I know, I don't believe that there's anything in the Act in reference to that question. It's a good point.
So were farmers then whose names were on that list, has FCC reached out to them and told them that their information was shared? And I would hope that there would be an apology or an acknowledgement that that did happen and that will not happen again.
I'm unaware, honourable member, but that would be a good question for FCC.
Just want to remind everybody, we interviewed John Carpe several times now, and he's coming on, I think, next week as well. Nobody's answered to this yet. I've interviewed Chris Barber, too, from the Freedom Convoy. Nobody's answered to this illegal use of the Emergencies Act. Nobody. They're in cabinet still. You know, the Mark Millers, Anita Nan, Melanie Jolie, Stephen Guilbeault. Mark Carney was there as the advisor. He's the one that said freeze bank accounts. Chrystia Freeland, Justin Trudeau. Nobody. The CBC has all their cell numbers. You know, they even have Justin Trudeau's. Nobody's answered to this. Nobody is answered to it. And there's likely not going to be an appeal to the Supreme Court because John Carpe says they likely have no grounds to appeal it to the Supreme Court. Nobody's answered to that. The trampling of Canadians' rights and freedoms under the Charter, literally trampled with horses. And again, for parking violations and noise violations. And nobody's answered to it. We're reaching out and seeing if we can get anybody to talk about it. But, you know, the CBC, nobody's answered. Ezra Levant was there trying to get some answers, but at Davos there. But
well, accepting, you know, with the exception of him and a couple of other people, no answers, but also no questions.
Yeah,
it's easy to not give an answer when nobody's asking the question. You know?
The only way that this government will be held accountable is when it gets changed out, because they won't provide access to the documents. Tamara Lich shares some of it on X, and she shows some of the handwriting from, because they had, you know, because they went to court, that Chrystia Freeland said, label them as terrorists, and then we can do more to them. Like, just like wild, eh? Just wild. And they shut down accounts. They reached in and censored wherever they could as well. This is Chris Erickson saying 4 years ago today, they suspended his account along with other Canadians that spoke out. This is how much influence they had over social media, over Facebook, over YouTube, over X when it was before Elon Musk. It never would have happened with Elon Musk. They never would have been able to do that. Elon Musk may have saved freedom of speech in the world.
But, I mean, would there have been an Elon Musk's Twitter without not just this, but all the rest of it, you know, the sort of hall of shame? The sort of progressive authoritarians, for want of a better or more precise term, they pushed and pushed and pushed until they pushed too far. And this was one example of it, I think. And that is what provoked Elon Musk. And not just Elon Musk. I mean, that's what made, I think, a lot of Americans vote for Donald Trump. And it's made a lot of people just say no. Finally, just open up their mouths long closed and say, no, that's enough now. And so you have to kind of think, as much as this was like such a shocking experience, it did, I think, in combination with other events, lead to where we are now. Although where we are now in Canada is still kind of back. We're still way behind the Americans, aren't we? And also the British, I would say, and lots of other people, lots of other Western cultures. We are still like several years behind. And that the evidence for that is right in front of us, because we haven't yet had a reckoning for this unconstitutional crackdown on protesters.
And here's Mark Miller. He leads the Canadian Heritage. He's the he's the Heritage Minister. And he says Canadians should be aware of illegitimate media. I must be talking about us, for the sake of social cohesion. So what is that? Behave. Make sure you watch CBC. Is that how it works? Remember that commercial that Apple did in 1984, where you're all sitting in the room and you have to watch the screen and to get your messaging? That's like does Mark Miller want us all to kind of like have a steady diet of CBC propaganda? And that was, he stated that in a cabinet meeting there. And I've been getting the number wrong. I guess now it's $1.6 billion. I've been saying 1.55 billion, but it's 1.6 billion now, the annual grant.
Rounded up.
What, the annual grant to promote social cohesion. What is that? That's almost like a Star Trek episode. You will be assimilated. Stop resisting.
You will be assimilated, but instead of it being the Borg, it's the Liberal Party. Let's not beat around the bush. Media outlets that are illegitimate in the eyes of the Liberal Party. Social cohesion as defined by the Liberal Party. This is extraordinary overreach. We're talking about overreach, and we're talking about legitimacy, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, this is kind of how you declare yourself to be an illegitimate government, really, isn't it? But I guess that's a longer story.
Listen to this. When there's a lack of support for the public broadcaster, I think that contributes to the spread of disinformation, and social cohesion is therefore affected. Literally, they're the ones spreading the misinformation and disinformation. Literally. Just watch them for a few minutes. It's basically a TDS network of garbage that comes out of there.
Not just that, though. Not just the CBC, which is the sort of mouthpiece of the Liberal Party, but the Liberal Party itself is responsible for pumping out huge amounts of misinformation. Just literally, from the top of my head, to extract it out of my grey matter, how many times has Stephen Guilbeault falsely linked CO2 emissions in Canada with forest fires in Canada, as if driving your car in Canada contributes to forest fires in Alberta and British Columbia, as if that's the reason that they're happening. Completely false. Complete misinformation. How many times has he done that? Mark Holland, Justin Trudeau's done it as well. I mean, they've all done it, haven't they? And that's just one subject. That's just one bit of misinformation. And the other one is the Kamloops graves, because that's what comes to mind when you think of CBC, is Rosie Barton falsely saying that the bodies of children were found there. And then CBC having to correct it with a little asterisk written down in the bottom of a story saying, sorry guys, that was false. But how many times Justin Trudeau did that? The federal government itself was made to do that. How many Liberal ministers said that? You know, that's not true. It is simply not true that children were found there.
Listen
whatever
to
else you might think about that event. But there are two examples of gross misinformation, lying to the Canadian people, and then a minister representing that government that has lied on numerous occasions to the Canadian people, misinformed them, then says, we don't want people to be misinformed. You know, how could anybody take this man seriously? Anybody?
He goes on to say, he defending the CBC mandate, I think we are in an age of, we're all living through intense disinformation. There is less social cohesion as falsities are propagated through media sources, both legitimate and illegitimate. And he did not identify any illegitimate media by name. Literally, the public broadcaster is even a government report said the CBC has become an arm of the Liberal Party. And they're all at the begging bowl. The Online News Act censors independent media, crushes them. They took our audience of 200,000 away. They created us here. This is why we're here, because we weren't here before. I mean, we're operating, serving our community for close to 15 years in this community. And we had no choice but to come online and do this because they took away our audience here, or took away our ability to survive and operate. He says it's integral to the healthy democracy. It's our fourth pillar of democracy. Well, you've torn down the fourth pillar. You've basically destroyed it. We asked the question of Mark Carney himself. We asked if the Online News Act would be repealed, which many of the MPs say it should be repealed. His response was, no, we're just going to give more money to the CBC. And that is one promise they did live up to. And Mark Carney said the CBC is the most important institution in Canada. Wonder why? Because it is the parrot and the mouthpiece of the Liberal Party.
But he also says, he's talking about a healthy media ecosystem and how exercising its freedom of expression, it's the fourth pillar of democracy and all the rest of it. Why wouldn't you be interviewed by us, Mark? Why have you not been interviewed by anybody? And you have the goal. I mean, he's got the goal to do the thing that in a just world, he would never think of doing. He would never dream of sitting there and saying this stuff with his record. And that's precisely what he does. And if you've ever wondered to yourself what it would have been like, or how it was possible for 1789 in France to happen, like how could that happen? How could something so insane like that happen? Mark Miller's given you a little fraction of a clue of what it would be like to have elites who are this incompetent, this hypocritical, and this shameless. I mean, the frustration just boils over. And he even says here about social cohesion. He says, social cohesion is the ability for people to trust their institutions. Has trust in Canadian institutions ever been lower than it is today? Then you would say, okay, Mr. Miller, your party's been in government for more than 10 years. Do you think you have anything to do with it? His answer would be, no, it's all misinformation. Ezra Levant is responsible for, and YouTube or something like that, they're responsible for this diminution and this decline in trust in Canadian institutions. Maybe just for a minute, consider the possibility that it's your fault, that maybe you have some responsibility for this collapse in institutions. And then he goes and does something like this. Does this shore up faith in Canadian institutions? You know, I'm asking that very honestly. I actually want to know, do you think that? What did Canada do? What did the Canadian people do to deserve this kind of governance? Is there some sort of horrible sin that the Canadian people committed that we're not aware of to deserve this punishment, this humiliation?
Ian has reached out many times to Mark Miller to ask for an interview. It's been refused. And we are an accredited news organization. Even according to their rules, we've been accredited by the governments. And that's BS to begin with, that the government decides who's media and who's not media. The government should not have a role in deciding who's a media outlet and who's not a media outlet. Imagine that. The government deciding who gets to be media and who's not media. The courts have said that already, yet they continue to do it though. The courts have said that the government has no role or right to be deciding who's media and who's not media. But yet they do it. Yet they still won't respond. They've said we are media. They've accredited us, yet still won't respond or do interviews. What does that tell you? The CBC is a shield. CBC, CTV is a shield for the Liberal Party.
And they just, I mean, we could just talk about this for the rest of the day. We could do 24 hours from now just on this, and I wouldn't run out of things to complain about, frankly, and I don't think you would either. But where are the ministers? When do they ever speak to the media? There are so many questions here attached to that statement that he made about how he considers it his job to try and protect faith in Canadian institutions. Like, get out there and talk to people. I mean, what is harder to trust than an elite that never really faces the people, never speaks to people, never sits down to be scrutinized? It's I don't know. I'm sort of tempted to say, is he just stupid? Like, is he just a moron? Is he as stupid as he looks and sounds? But that's too simple. I don't think he is as stupid as he looks. I think he knows, which makes it so much worse.
Here's another Liberal senator now saying federal departments and agencies should boycott Twitter. They don't like Twitter because they don't like the truth. They don't like the comments that go underneath their stuff. They don't like that. They don't like being called out because they're out and out lying most of the time, and people call it out. And this is why they want social cohesion. I will be assimilated. I will do as you tell me. So this former CBC producer, imagine that, former CBC producer and Edmonton Journal columnist, calling for social media, called the social media platform revolting. We talked to you yesterday about what Blue Sky and Reddit. We talked at the top of the show what Reddit is. It's just a cesspool, and so is Blue Sky. That's where the anger is. John Fetterman, a Democratic senator, said, Blue Sky is horrible. And when will the Canadian government follow New Brunswick's lead and stop relying on X for official communication? They want to control everything. They want to control everything. Is that what we want in Canada? Is this what you want? They won't even respond right now. They won't take from accredited media. They won't even answer questions. And now they don't want any kind of like accountability, period. You don't.
Also, though, why should there be some? Why should that even be a phrase? Accredited media. That's just like an oxymoron.
They should get to decide.
That should never exist in the first place.
They shouldn't get to decide who is accredited and who's not accredited. And this same thing goes for this. And yet they've said that Facebook, the reason this Facebook is supposed to be the evil empire and they boycotted it, yet they spend millions of dollars to push their message out there and still do not allow us to put our message on our news on Facebook or Instagram. Imagine that. Just look at the hypocrisy of that alone. And this lady here, former CBC, man, just imagine that she came from CBC and wants to shut down access to information. Do you want to live in a world where you basically just log on to the CBC website in the morning, they tell you what to think and how to feel? And then maybe you can, I don't know how you're going to get any heat that day, but I don't know what kind of world that would be.
Trying to push people to Mastodon, Blue Sky. I mean, there's one thing to be ruled over by people, isn't it? It's another thing to be ruled over by stupid people. That's the ultimate humiliation. I could almost accept being ruled by a sort of aristocratic elite with a closed-off system. I could almost accept that if they were really good at what they did. If it was like a real technocratic government full of geniuses. But this is like, I know this is a senator who doesn't matter at all, but still, it's the humiliation, isn't it? Yeah. It's just, you feel ashamed because these are the people who are like on the top rung of the ladder, and they're just absolutely stone cold stupid.
So here's the question: who does Mark Carney work for? And this question is being asked by independent journalists. Sam Cooper does a lot of really good work. 10 Hong Kong diaspora organizations spanning Canada, United States, United Kingdom, and Europe have issued an extraordinary open letter to Government Canada expressing deep fear and anxiety over Carney's deal on law enforcement cooperation between the RCMP and the Minister of Public Security and People's Republic of China. You know, like as China's done it, has a great record with democracy, don't they? Isn't it amazing? They had a bounty actually on an MP here in Canada. They literally had a bounty on an MP here in Canada. All he had to do is make $1 million was drag the guy over to the Chinese consulate where they could drag him inside and beat him or something. I don't know. Here's Sam Cooper, though. Let's listen in. We're going to see if we can get Sam Cooper on here. Ian's going to reach out, see if we can get Sam Cooper on for an interview.
Recently talked to someone pretty well connected up high in the White House familiar with the people that were laughing at and ridiculing Mark Carney's speech in Switzerland. And basically what was conveyed to me is, the people were saying, like, who is Mark Carney working for? It doesn't make sense. And I said, well, I mean, you can't exactly prove this case in court, but I've reported a number of times on the Bureau that credible people say Canada's policy is set up in towards the world, and especially China, is set in certain business offices in Montreal, right? There's people that have actually been told this in no uncertain terms. So maybe it's a case where let's just go with Occam's razor that Mark Carney really is owned by certain, or owes a lot to certain corporate interests in Montreal. And it doesn't even have to go as far as Davos. It's right home in Montreal. These are the people, along with Jean Chrétien, going back to Pierre Trudeau, that have surrounded Canadian prime ministers. And maybe, maybe they don't care that much about the rest of Canada. Maybe they think the rest of Canada isn't smart enough to see what they're up to.
That's good.
He's always laughing, isn't he? He's always giggling, Sam Cooper, but it's so like depressing, isn't it? I guess that's like his coping mechanism. We have a similar sort of coping mechanism, don't we?
Yep.
To try and survive in this swamp of misery.
We're gonna reach out to Sam and see if we can get him on. I mean, Mark Carney literally borrowed over $250 million from the Bank of China and then met with Xi himself. Then the Bank of China is the Communist China Party bank. He had to borrow that money to refinance his properties, Brookfield's properties in China. No conflict of interest questions asked by the media. That ride on the same plane, they must be kept busy devouring sausage rolls because they can't seem to get a question out. I'm sure they're not going to let Ian and I on the plane, or Sam Cooper, Holly Doan. Those people aren't going to get on that plane. How dare you speak out? We're going to show you something at the end of the show here that shows you the difference between what they say is a threat to democracy and what the actual threat is. This is Mike Barrett there on the complaints on ignored access to information laws. I mean, the transparency in this government is just gone. Listen in.
219 complaints and 42 orders in year 24-25. So there's a lot of people who say, I would say rightly say, that PCO did not do what the law requires. If you could just very quickly, in 30 seconds or less, tell me what is driving this problem at PCO.
I do not know that I can answer that in 30 seconds. However, I will endeavor to answer it for you. The number of complaints is driven by a number of factors, including the complexity of the files and the number of access information complaints and requests that we are getting. We are currently receiving a large number of requests, and our requests have grown dramatically over the last few years, doubling over the last few years. We have also noted the complexity of the requests and the pages requested is much longer than before. When it comes to the complaints themselves, it is worth noting that our complaints are largely amongst 3 individual requesters. 78% of our complaints are from 3 requesters, and those have grown in the last few years, whereas complaints from other requesters other than those 3 have actually dropped by 50% over the last few years.
Has PCO consistently followed the law with respect to, and without exception, with respect to access to information?
PCO's access to information team makes every effort to release documents in the timelines outlined in the Act and to seek extensions when required.
So that's not a yes. And you mentioned that PCO is not going to reduce in size the number of people who deal with ATIPs. But by how many people has PCO added to their to the department over the last 10 years?
We are currently in the process of reducing the department.
With respect, sir, the question is, over the last 10 years, by a percentage or total number, how much larger was PCO how much did it grow over the 10-year period?
I do not have those numbers with me, as we're here to talk about access to information, and we did not bring financial figures.
Well, you brought up staffing levels. So if you're bringing up staffing levels as it relates to your ability or inability to appropriately manage requests to access information, I think it's reasonable for us to quantify how many people you've had at your disposal and working in that department, and what their priorities have been. We have seen requests
these things can go on for a long time. What the main point is, though, it's harder than heck to get any information out of the government. It's almost impossible. And it seems like they try to make it harder and harder and harder.
And that's the kind of video representation of what we have to undergo via email, or I was going to say over the phone. It's not like you can get through to anybody. The best you can get over the phone is somewhere that you can leave a voicemail that they never respond to. But that's, that's kind of what it looks like. That's like being a journalist, really, in Canada, just constantly being stonewalled. Or I suppose at least he's actually got a response of some kind, even if it's dodging the question.
Ian and I talk about this lots, supply management and how it costs the consumer money. But here's the food professor explaining how maybe not getting rid of it, but how you could actually help lower some of the costs if you just spread it out across Canada, whereas it mostly is favors Quebec. Let's listen in here.
Okay, let's cruise along. Can you give me a couple examples of interprovincial trade barriers that you think would really help us with the end cost of food in the grocery store?
Thank you for the question. The biggest portion of the $500 to $700 amount that I mentioned earlier, the biggest portion is probably coming from supply management. As you probably are aware, quotas are managed by provinces. And I've been asked several times over the years if there is one thing we could do to optimize supply management, because I don't believe we should end the quota system at all. We need to keep it for our industries, for food security's sake. And I think because we're just north of the United States, they have very competitive farms in the United States. If we are to eliminate quotas tomorrow, we would see the disappearance of our dairy sector at least, and that's not, I think, what Canadians want. But if you are to optimize the supply management system, you just need to allocate new quotas nationally instead of provincially. That would reward efficiency. That would reward effectiveness. But as you can imagine, if you do that, all the wealth in the dairy sector in particular would actually move westward.
Right.
And Quebec would know that.
Okay.
Uh-oh. So, in other words, no.
In other words, Quebec.
Yeah.
Which is the answer. That's the answer to so much, isn't it? Just like for shorthand, I could give you the long explanation, but just to give you the brief explanation, Quebec.
Yeah, a lot of people pointing out the food professor's suit. Yeah, Ian and I are just kind of boring, I guess, compared to that.
Golden
Jet. It's amazing how much airtime the CBC gives to the unions that don't want to go back to work 5 days a week. Nothing about the Freedom Convoy. Nothing there on that. Listen in on this again. This is, how many times have they played this? We don't have it? That's okay. We don't need it. It's just more complaining about having to go back to work and how we're just on Teams meetings and this and that. And like, the offices aren't ready and just like, yeah. Just nonsense. Dominic LeBlanc put out this tweet. Look at this. The new Canadian Essentials and Groceries benefit. Here's another. Again, if Canada is competing in the photo op contest, Canada wins hands down. Canada leads in that department. Photo ops, social media posts, the gaslighting, all those things are big wins for Canada. Basically, Canadians have to be making almost like minimum wage to qualify for these things. So So there you go.
Somebody's just said it's funny how everyone hates Quebec. Lol. I'm not going to speak for Jim, though. I assume he will agree. I love Quebec. I really like Quebec. I go there all the time. I really like people from Quebec. I like almost everything about Quebec, frankly, except the politics.
The politics. That's I'm going to echo that.
The rulers.
I went to Quebec City for the Memorial Cup when we were billeting rockets. We went there with the boys, watched the. They love their hockey, man. Quebec City is a beautiful city, absolutely beautiful, stunning city.
So is Montreal, to be fair. I would say.
I've only been to Gatineau and Quebec City. Gatineau,
not a beautiful city. It should still be called Hull, which it's appropriate. It looks like a hull. But near Gatineau, you've got places like Chelsea. Chelsea's very nice, and Wakefield.
Just seems how we got lots of stuff to go. I'm not gonna play this clip here from Senator Denise Batters there, and she's just asking how you're asking us to approve this budget. You chucked in another $12 billion that wasn't in the budget. It's like, how are we doing? And I mean, it's a question Ian and I have had. We don't need to play her saying it, but it's odd. We've just done the budget. All of a sudden, there's a $12 billion vote buying it. It's now people are saying it's 13 billion, 13.6 billion or whatever. The number keeps growing. And who pays for that? You do, right? You do. And then one conservative MP went out and say, because come April 1, taxes are going up for liquor and taxes are going up for the MP raises. Because it comes out of your money. You're paying for it. So he said he was going to refuse the pay bump, and it's just like a hump, was heckled by his colleagues because they don't want to forgo a tax. A pay raise. A Tory MP said he refused that parliamentary pay increase has been criticized by members of his own party, according to CBC News report. Mike Dawson, who represents New Brunswick, said it was distasteful to be receiving $10,000 pay boost while Canadians haven't seen a raise in decades. And the other MPs are just like, I remember that during COVID. I remember that here with MLAs. When I asked the question to them, you're asking Canadians to forego. You're asking Canadians to forego their jobs, everything. You're asking them to stay home and suffer. Why don't you stop taking pay? You're at home. And you know what the response was? We do a lot of work for our money. If you listen to that. So Canadians don't do any work for their money that pay their salaries. They justify their salary because they do a lot of work, take your money. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that, saying that and rattling around that in your own head? They shouldn't take a raise. They shouldn't take a raise while the economy's in a tailspin. But they're taking a raise. Plus their expenses. $273,000 for Greg Fergus when he was Speaker of the House for a year. $273,000 just for his junkets. And he's not the only one. He's not the only one. Mark Carney, what was it, 72,000? No, I can't remember the number now. It was way more than 72. 772,000, I think. You can go back and watch one of the things. It's 772,000, I think, for his trips so far this year.
And, this guy stands up and says this and then gets it in the neck from his own comrades who have as their main platform item cost of living and, this idea that the system is not run in a fair way.
Notice
there's a lot of waste.
Notice how CBC slanted the article, though, right? Other conservatives, they didn't go ask one Liberal MP if they would take the cut. Do you know what I mean? They just went.
It's just all about the Tories, yeah.
Yeah, so it was just
There's also a weird line in that story where this chap himself, the MP, says that he had a conversation with Pierre Poilievre and said something along the lines of, we're totally on the same page. So I guess that means Poilievre agrees, but for some reason isn't going to pursue this. But, to be cynical, to put my Machiavellian hat on, this would be good politics. So I don't really know why Poilievre doesn't do it. I'm sure he doesn't care about the money. But to be fair, a lot of them probably don't care about it. So I think it would be something to pursue, but maybe they're worried that it would look like they were being petulant or something and not dealing with the real issues.
It's amazing CBC only asked other Tories, didn't ask one Liberal. You know, like, because in fair journalism, because you're targeting that side of the story, you would just go ask the NDP or the Green or the Liberals if they would take the pay cut. No. Nope. Why would you do that? Pay hike, I mean, tax hike coming. And that's just the automatic tax hike coming. So, you want a drink? Drink now. Feds observe Muslim dates. Muslim observances now outnumber Christian days on the federal calendar, according to Access Information memo by the Immigration Refugee Board. It was due to the inclusion of diversity, equity, and accessibility related dates. The calendar identifies the dates will be commemorated by the board throughout the year, as well as a subset of those dates that will be recognized through national virtual events. 5 Christian observances are marked on the calendar: Christmas, Orthodox Christmas, Easter, Orthodox Easter, and I can't pronounce that one, and Nowruz, and a September 11th observance of Coptic Christians. 8 Muslim observances.
What? I can't believe the first one. That's terrible. I was thinking it was just going to be like Eid. And there it is. International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. That's a political, obviously that's a political event. That's not a religious event.
No.
How is that a Muslim observance? Palestine is not all Muslims, Christians. Like, what? And also National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City mosque attack. That's not a religious event either. That's like, that's about Canada, all Canada sort of. That affected the whole country. It's not like a religious observance. What the hell?
Well, listen to this. If you want to get your blood pressure going, the interim health program costing around $80 million in 2016 is now $1.5 billion. It's going to cost about $1.5 billion by 2030, driven largely by supplemental health benefits for asylum seekers. Let's listen in on this.
Thank you very much for coming out here today. It's I really do appreciate you stepping up and getting this report done very quickly. And thank you. As we'll soon discover here, get to the bottom of this program. So in 2016, the interim federal health program cost taxpayers less than $80 million a year. What do you project the program will cost by 2030?
So our projection assumed that for the fiscal year 29-30, the cost will be around $1.5 billion.
1.5 billion every single year?
I mean, that's the cost for that specific fiscal year, yes.
Yeah,
that's good.
Every year.
That's good. Yeah, just he's like every year. Yeah, so illegal immigrants and refugee claimants on average 1,363 per year of free health care, total cost of $989 million this year. That's from the budget office. And the budget office estimates total program costs will reach $1 billion in 26 and rise to over $1.5 billion in 29. And that's the report projecting the cost of interim healthcare costs. Costs were as little as $211 in 2020. The program covers costs like free prescriptions, eyeglasses, medical exam, medical aids, home visits, nursing home fees, transportation, physiotherapy, occupational therapy. And the government's website states refugee claimants remain eligible for supplemental health benefits even after their claim has been rejected. So you've come here and you claim asylum and you're rejected, you still get it.
Still get physiotherapy.
What happens if you don't leave Canada? The budget office said you'd still get benefits.
Maybe I should...
you came in the wrong way.
Burn my passport.
You came in the wrong way.
Then I can get some physiotherapy for my bad ankle because I didn't go to ER because I didn't want to experience 12-hour wait.
So the outrage has made some changes, though. So Liberal MP says that they're going to make some changes effective May 1. And it's the users will now be required to pay $4 per prescription and 30% of the supplemental health benefits like physiotherapy, occupational therapy, or speech therapy. And that should save about $127 million of the $1.5 billion.
Nice.
It's better benefits than most people get. Like if you don't have a job that has benefits, sucks to be you. Sucks to be you.
By the way, we've got some breaking news.
What's that?
People in the comments might already know, but since we're doing this, we don't really see it. But the the election in Terrebonne, near Montreal. I think it's in Montreal, isn't it?
They're going to have
the Liberals won by 1 vote. No, the Supreme Court has annulled the result. So it had to go to the highest court in the land because the Liberals didn't do the right thing.
That's what I'm saying. They're going to have a by-election.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. Let's have a by-election.
They're going to force it. The Liberals are not for democracy. That's another example of a party that does not believe in democracy. The Online Censorship Act, Ian and I could go on a rant here. Online censorship, the access to information, the transparency, the accountability, that vote that was clearly like a farce. Farce. And it took the Supreme Court to say
ballots that just weren't counted. And Elections Canada said, oh yeah, we screwed up there. They were legit. It was my bad. And then it still stood. The Liberals should have obviously killed that right away and said, and this is what I'm saying about Mark Miller. We're talking about faith in institutions, faith in our democracy. How can we have faith in the system when you weren't even morally decent enough to recognize that there needed to be a by-election there? Instantly, right away, say, okay, we have to give the appearance of totally legit elections. That's like a priority. We're definitely going to call a by-election. And they didn't bloody do it because they don't care about the institutions. They don't care about any of that. They care about how many seats have we got? How can we swing this in Parliament? Is this enough? Can we get enough defections to have a majority?
And then one more to add to that, Rosie Barton and Mark Carney there, and the Global interviewer asked about, is the Liberal Party going out and trying to convince people to join the Liberal Party? Mark Carney said no, that they're coming to me, attracting. And then we had several MPs step up and say, no, they're approaching us. And Michael Ma was one of those such people that decided 27,000 votes don't matter. His meeting with Mark Carney and 3 days earlier with the Chinese representatives mattered more, and he decided to cross over. And now he's like the biggest seal there on the Liberal Party there.
Well, he's being well rewarded as well, isn't he? He's like Carney's right-hand man.
They do not believe in democracy. The Online News Act proves that over and over again. This proves, there's so many things, and yet the CBC is an absolute abysmal failure to Canadians. Why did you have us on, Rosie and David Cochran? Why don't you just, because we're going to replace you sooner than later, because you need to go. You have failed Canada.
Not if Mark Miller has anything to say about it, they're not going anywhere, because he says they're necessary to maintain faith in Canada's institutions. Another example that comes to mind is obviously the absolutely disgusting, crazy insanity going on, foreign interference of the bounty on the chap in that Toronto riding, and then the joke made about it by the Liberal candidate, who the Liberals didn't even drop. Absolutely mad. Absolute madness. And then the way that Carney was parachuted into Nepean, just shuffled off the face of the earth, the guy that had been there for like 15 years. There are so many things that the Liberals do that...
Let's not forget our friend
institutions.
Ruby Dalla, when they just basically shoved her out the door as well. Took her money and booted her out.
Yep. There is such a long list of. I just wish that they had the moral seriousness about them, just to recognize that, in terms of the degradation in trust that Canadians have in Canadian institutions, is on them too. It's down to the Liberal Party too. In fact, they might be the largest single contributor to that decline in faith in our institutions. Just be man enough, or indeed woman enough. Just come and admit it and say, yep, that was on us. Yeah, we're going to be better next time. By doing things like calling a by-election in this riding, Terrebonne, where our woman actually won by 1 vote, and the votes for some of the other candidates weren't counted. So really, we didn't win. So that, obviously, faith in institutions matters, doesn't it, guys? let's have a by-election. But instead of doing that, they didn't do it. They didn't do a damn thing. And it's, I don't know. How's your faith doing? How's your faith in Canadian institutions doing, Canadians?
And then this here, refugees fleeing tyranny wait for years in line while criminals exploit loopholes to avoid deportation. We're not going to play that clip because you get the idea there. But look at this here. 3 and 4 nationals arrested by extortion patrol are charged in BC shooting. And this is from John Rustad. And they get to stay here. Even they get to stay and wait their refugee claim history or their hearing, which is backed up. What did we say? It was like, how many years? We did that story just the other day. I think it was like 10 years back up or something. It's clownish. It's absolutely clownish. It's absolutely clownish. Like the extortion, and the mayor in Surrey has called for a national emergency. That they have 46 extortion cases, 11 shootings, and arson, 17 repeat victims in weeks. The 3 foreign nationals are charged with firing into homes, CBSA involved. Families are reinforcing their doors. Ottawa debates compassion for criminals. 330% rise in extortion, citing in the motion, is not an abstract statistics. And yet, what do they focus on? Let's ban X. Let's get an online news, online streaming, like more bills to censor Canadians. Nothing about crime, jail not bail, none of that. CASA laws, none of that. All as it is how to censor Canadians. Shut your mouth.
And also, if anyone's complaining out there, then it must just be to do with illegitimate media, which the Liberal Party will obviously decide. They'll decide what's legitimate and what's illegitimate media. That's what's to blame. And Elon Musk, probably. Yeah. MAGA. Well, anyway, they keep poking at the Americans' economy. Listen, here's the numbers from this morning. Listen to this. This is from CNN. Don't forget the anti-Trump network as well. Play this.
Cost of living, right? Inflation took a big step in the right direction to start the year off. So consumer prices up by 2.4% year over year. That is an improvement from 2.7% in December that beat expectations, which were for 2.5%. In fact, this is a new 8-month low for annual inflation, month over month. Prices up by 0.2%, also a step in the right direction, also beating expectation. Now, economists look really closely at core inflation, which excludes food and energy. Core inflation came in at 2.5%. That's notable because that's the lowest annual inflation rate for core since March of 2021, before the inflation crisis. Now, while we can't exclude food and energy from our family budgets, that's important because economists say that's a better.
The numbers in the United States economy support an economy that's set to boom. And then if we look at the leading indicators, the amount of capital being invested in the United States, the amount of capital being drawn to the United States, including Mark Carney himself, the amount of capital being drawn to the United States, the amount of capital being deployed, I see it all the time, I watch this all the time, supports an economy that's about to blast off. Not so here. Not so here. This is from David Rosenberg, one of the, from Rosenberg Research and Associates, and he's a fairly level-headed guy. And this piece that he wrote, you can go find it on LinkedIn as well. The problem is, and Ian and I haven't said it, it's not Trump, it's weakness of leadership. And it's been a weakness of leadership for 11 years. Like all the resources here in Canada that have been kiboshed. And he said he went on CBC. He said he had a rather tense interview with CBC as the anchor seemed rather upset with him that he didn't trash Donald Trump. When I went through his list of reasons why the Canadian economy remains on soft ground. Why would, see that's what I mean, the CBC is more interested in defending the Liberal Party. We showed that the other day when they did that interview. The first thing to do is defend the Liberal Party. And all I said was the Canadians' economic stagnation was intact long before the launch of the tariff war. Yeah, Canada was stagnating. You can go to my LinkedIn and read that from a couple years ago. Canadian politics are using this file as camouflage, allowing them to convince Canadians that the woes boil down to trade and tariff tensions. The reality is, the global comparison terms, Canada actually got off fairly light from Trump trade actions to date. They use it. They manipulate you. They fool you. The reality of it is capital has left Canada. Capital has left Canada. We've suppressed our natural resources. And who does it benefit? The people that are invested in climate change, the people that have bet a lot of money on climate technologies. That's who it benefits. We've done that for that reason. And look at it. We don't even meet any of the climate goals. We did it at the top of the show. None of it. Canada losing in the economy, 1. 2, Canada losing in these climate change battle. And for what? Who's winning? The people investing in climate agenda. That's who wins.
The rent seekers.
The rent seekers.
We've got, going to interject again, we've got more breaking news-ish, kind of breaking news, which is that Crown Royal is gone back on the shelves at the Ontario's liquor store because they've done a deal for $23 million in spending. They're going to, this company's going to, the Diageo, the company, is going to spend $23 million in Ontario, but they're still not, because it was all about this bottling plant, wasn't it? That's still gone to the US. Well, that's not, you know, they're still shutting it down, but there you go. Doug Ford, he's gonna say he won that then, isn't he? He's gonna say, and folks, that's why you got to stand up to Donald Trump.
He could go on there.
$23 million.
He could go on there with Ed Miliband and see if they can confuse each other. Jamil Javani went down there to Washington, and nobody's talked to him yet. He said he's more than willing to help, and he said he hasn't even got on any TV shows or anything to try to make the Liberals look bad. He just wants to help. Yet, nah. They like it that Canada is mad at the United States. This helps the Liberal Party.
Of course, it does.
It's their mojo. The CBC is a fear machine for the Liberals. It is to ramp up the fear. It is basically, again, go watch that commercial, 1984 there with Apple. The people are sitting in the room like zombies. I don't know where that girl in the red pants is with the hammer. Maybe that's you and I. But somebody
Is
needs
that the one where she throws it at the screen? Throws something at the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Ridley Scott that did that. The director of Alien and the director of Blade Runner as well. So a very, very famous director.
Yeah.
But this, what you said anyway, we've said it so many times, but let's say it again because it's important. I do get the impression, I agree with you, that they rather like this situation because it rescued the party. They have jobs because of this.
Yeah.
Melanie Jolie, Champagne.
CBC.
All of them.
It would have been defunded. CBC would have been defunded. Yeah.
They've all been riding the magic carpet of Trump hatred and anti-Americanism now for, what was it, a year? It's been more than a year, hasn't it? They've been riding this for a very long time, and they love it. Clearly they do, because it rescued the Liberals from absolute certain death. They were 23 or something points behind in the polls. They were going to be obliterated. There were people saying that the Liberal Party can never come back from this, that it's finished. It's going to be beaten so bad that it's done. It's finished. And yet here they are, ruling over us, our masters once again. So yes, obviously, you can't help but imagine that they're quite pleased about the situation. But I've, from my reading of Canadian history, this trick has been pulled off numerous times in Canadian history, specifically related to the United States. John A. Macdonald did this. He beat Laurier in an election that it looked like he was going to lose by saying that Laurier wanted reciprocity with America and that he was really just an American. Reciprocity is like trade, free trade. And won the election. And, John A. Macdonald, he's considered to be a very, very cheeky chappy for having done that. And it's like, a lot of people sort of wag their fingers at him saying it was very cynical. And then I believe Robert Borden did something like that as well. Like, it's not an unusual thing to have happened. But what amazes me is that there's no immunity. The Canadian population doesn't have a built-in immunity to this kind of exploitation. And I feel like because it's been so successful now with Carney and the Liberals, if you were the Conservative leader, obviously Poilievre's not going to do this, I don't think anyway, but the next Conservative leader, how could you resist? There's literally a button that you press and it puts your poll numbers up like 15 points. All you've got to do is attack America. It's a button right there. Why don't you push it? You know, it's like the temptation is going to be too great, I feel, in the future.
Just want to give you a little update on Monday. We'll be off Monday for Family Day. And we'll be back Tuesday at 9 a.m. And we will have Michael Cooper, MP, Conservative MP. And we're going to talk to him on at about 10:30. I think he's going to dial into the show. And we're going to try to get a lot more guests as well. So again, like, share, subscribe what we're doing. If you like what we're doing, comment. We love the comments. And we're trying to grow this show. Ian and I are trying to replace Rosie Barton and David Cochran. And when they're out the door, so sooner or later, CBC's done, because I mean, the job they're doing is not the voice for Canadians. It's a voice for a party. And that's not $1.6 billion for that. More on the Canadian economy and the U.S. economy. Donald Trump's tariffs imports have meant more expensive goods for the U.S., although it doesn't show up too much. The Federal Reserve Bank has explained in newly released research. The study said 90% of these costs are being paid by American companies who pass the burden on to consumers. I don't know how much of it's getting passed on. The CPI numbers are down.
Well, I mean, they're not the only people that have said this. I mean, loads of institutions have said this. What it would suggest is that maybe inflation was coming down so much that it hasn't been noticed in the same way.
Their cost of energy has come way off. And again, energy is in everything. Energy is like one of the biggest components in most everything. It takes energy to literally move my finger like that. It takes energy because I have to eat something to move my finger. Energy is in everything. Energy to watch this. Energy to move around. Energy is in everything. All those people screaming about no energy, get rid of energy. Then what? What do you say? If there's no energy, no fossil fuels, what happens to the population of the world?
Yeah, probably halve. I mean, more than half, really. That's just without fertilizer. Fertilizer, like nitrogenous fertilizer, that's the old Haber-Bosch process and all that. I mean, we're talking billions of people that would die without that, because it increases the crop yield by such a significant amount. That's the green revolution, you know. That's the reason that, you know, I can't remember his name now, but that guy that said that everybody's gonna die, there's gonna be loads of famines. I can't remember his name. He was a very big deal in the 60s, and he wrote a book called The Population Bomb, I think. He said, like, everybody's gonna die. We're all gonna die. Like, the reason that he was wrong is because, in large part, fertilizers, which obviously, maybe we should clarify, you can't have nitrogenous fertilizers without fossil fuels. It's literally essential.
So the people that think Ian and I are, I don't know, like there's some people that come on here and say we're telling lies. This report here we showed you yesterday, we talked about it in depth. This is from Tiff Macklin. This is the headline, Tiff Macklin, Bank of Canada. The Bank of Canada's economy. Things get worse, then you die. Meaning, it's going to be a long time for things to get better. A government-funded report came out a while back that Mark Carney sneered at, was that the people with means will leave Canada. The ones left behind will devastate the wildlife just to feed themselves. I mean, these reports are out there. Look at what, in almost a year, what has been moved ahead. Even that Sisson mine, I saw that and I didn't put it in today. That Sisson mine that they touted, like one of the big projects. Remember that? Sisson mine, because they had 12 projects. They knocked one off because it wasn't really a project. So they got 11. The Sisson mine is one that was approved in 2019. They're going to start construction. Wait for it. Drum roll. Any ideas? Fast tracked. 2029.
I thought we were looking at 2030s there, so I'm impressed.
I'm not even going to do that story. There's a lot of time. We got a little bit of American stuff here. Well, maybe we'll do it. There's a man killed on an Okanagan highway here just in Vernon, in our Okanagan Valley here, hit by a commercial vehicle this morning. Or yesterday morning, sorry, 7:25 yesterday morning. And they left the scene of the crime. And they left the deceased person lying in the middle of the eastbound lanes. So if anybody has any information on webcams or dash cams or anything, if you could turn that over to the RCMP. Because the driver of the commercial vehicle didn't think it was worthwhile stopping.
Crazy, isn't it? And at least, you know, talk about faith in institutions, at least we can all rest assured that if this person is found and it turns out that he or she was aware and left the scene on purpose, and then that goes through a trial and everything and a conviction, we can be all very confident that there'll be a massive punishment, won't there?
Nope.
Definitely. The justice will be done. I'm sure everybody recognizes that.
And here's Christine Noam announcing a massive seizure of 1.7 billion lethal doses of narcotics taken off the street, record-breaking haul. 188,000 pounds. 188,000 pounds. Look at that. Wild. I'm not going to play the clip. We'll play this clip. We'll play this clip. Fetterman is just like, he's obviously going to get the boot out of the Democratic Party. Listen to him here, what he has to say. He's going to be like our favorite guy, Mr. Fetterman.
I met with Secretary Noem, and I've always treated her with respect. I met with her in my office, and I refused, and I never will engage on the kinds of sexist kinds of terms like Ice Barbie from a lot of the left media will use those kind of things. And now I said, hey, I'm a Democrat, then I say, secure our border? Yeah. And deport all of the criminals? Yeah. You know, I think we can agree, we can sign up on that. And then my friend, Katie Britt, came to me and said, we want to bring the Lincoln-Riley bill there. And I'm like, yeah, I was going to be the Democrat to bring that there. And now we the co-sponsor as the Democrat. So I believe that we should have those kinds of appropriate things.
That's good. That's good. So the liberals and the Democrats are basically the same thing. I mean, the same type of rhetoric from a lot of them. Where's the John Fetterman here in Canada? There's got to be one out there. Is it you, Joel Lightbound? Who is it? There's got to be somebody out there that's had enough of this nonsense, that actually cares more about Canada than the life of the Liberal Party. It's got to be somebody that has some common sense left in them. It's got to be somebody.
Maybe if their poll numbers sink again. But even then, when they were, like I said, when they were more than 20 down, you still didn't really have defections, did you? I mean, what you had instead was people saying, I'm not going to run in the next election. That was the equivalent.
Well, they're all scared about losing because they didn't want, that's how much their egos. Here's John Fetterman again on these so-called experts. And then we played this many times on this show, talking about all these experts. Whenever media outlets go, expert, run, don't read that story. Listen to this.
It's like Maduro used to be like the ultimate bad guy. And, Joe Biden put $25 million on his head. And then surgically they did that. They removed him. And now there was no, the world not on fire in the Middle East after the Iranian strikes. And Venezuela isn't on fire either. A lot of the so-called experts, aren't they ever tired of being wrong? Especially Iran, and Israel. And many of them are in the New York Times. Aren't they ever tired of constantly being wrong? And after what Israel has accomplished, and now there can be peace forward. And so for me, it's like.
Are they going to be tired of being wrong? COVID, wrong. Trucker thing, Freedom Convoy, wrong. How many things are they wrong about? I mean, there's a ton. There's so many. I just probably can't come up with them all right now, but...
We need a buzzer that's like, wrong.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the narratives, climate change, wrong. Suppress your natural resources, wrong. No business case for LNG, wrong.
I mean, so much drugs. I show you.
Decriminalization. Decriminalization. Wrong.
All along. Yeah.
I mean, you guys can start listing them in the comments. All the things they're wrong about. All the things that have destroyed the fabric of Canada, the fabric of family. Godless media too. A godless media. You know what props up Ian's monitor there when we're doing this? The King James Bible.
And War and Peace. The Three Kingdoms, that's the Chinese historical novel. Dialogues of Plato. SAS Survival Guide, just in case I fall out of a plane.
Caitlin Collins, Caitlin Collins, as much as a lot of people don't like Caitlin Collins, she's on CNN. I kind of respect Caitlin Collins because she'll stand in the fire, and she'll ask questions. She's been accused of, Trump has spewed at her a few times and tells her that she's crap media and she's a liar and all this stuff. But I don't know. Let's listen to Caitlin Collins.
Foreign trip with the president, and he came in with all the other leaders, including the Saudi crown prince. They famously do not like the media there,
right.
To put it lightly. And I asked a shouted question to President Trump, who had seen me when the U.S. press came in. He didn't answer, which is, that's how it works. You shout questions, they either answer or they don't. It's their prerogative. And then the world leaders left the room. The Saudi royal guard kind of freaked out because I dared to ask a question, and they're not used to that there because they don't have a free press. And so they came up and they said, okay, well, you can't come into the next event, which was like 2 minutes later. And I was like, that's not how this works. I go into the US press, and they were like, well, you're not coming in. And I could see them like whispering and pointing about me. And some of the younger White House staff that were with the press weren't really sure what to do. And they went to Caroline. And to her credit, she said, no, Caitlin's coming in with the rest of the U.S. press. And we went in. And so it didn't become this huge issue because obviously if I had not been allowed in, this is something that has happened with the North Koreans when the president visited the DMZ and Sarah Huckabee.
That's good. As bad as I think Caitlin Collins is sometimes, she would put every parliamentary gallery media person to utter shame, to absolute shame, because she would not compromise herself for a sausage roll. Like, I think Caitlin Collins believes in Caitlin Collins before she believes in the sausage roll. Like, you wouldn't be able to tell her no. Although she did eat some sausage rolls with Joe Biden. Let's admit that, though. She definitely.
There's two parties here, two American women that we should mention. Not just her for being tenacious, number one, and also being honest enough to say this about a political opponent or a political opponent of CNN's. She's said, like, fair enough, and said that publicly. But also Carolyn Levitt there. Can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen, can you imagine some sort of Liberal Party hack appointed by the Liberal Party to manage press? Can you imagine them behaving in the same way for one of their, I was going to say one of their sort of political opponents in the press, but they don't have any because they don't let them exist. They don't let them come in the first place. But just imagine somebody like Rebel, illegitimate news. Mark Miller's shouting, illegitimate, straight away. It sort of gives you an idea, doesn't it? But somebody like that, or even somebody from, the National Post, they're a bit tame, aren't they? But just imagine like a real sort of hostile journalist to the Liberal Party. Can you imagine a Liberal hack managing the press team there saying, oh, no, I'm going to defy the Saudis. You're coming in. You're coming in with us. Can you imagine that happening? Because I can't.
Well, let's look at the leadership, the election here at the debate. CBC prevented Ezra Levant and the other independent media from getting access to asking a question. They even went as far as to have the event canceled so that they couldn't ask a question because the court said they were allowed in. The Supreme Court of Canada said, I don't know if it's the Supreme Court, but the court said the government can't determine who's a journalist. They can come into the room and ask questions. So what did they do? The CBC threw a hissy fit, said they felt unsafe around all the other journalists. Like, how could you even get away with that gibberish at Miliband, maybe? But by saying that you felt unsafe, that's the typical line. They felt unsafe, so they had to cancel the event. They felt like what? Ezra Levant and the other rebel media there, the independent media, were going to attack them? Unsafe in what way? Clownish. Elections Canada. The person that made that decision should be fired. Absolutely should be fired. Not held accountable. Not held accountable.
Somebody's having a go at Ezra here. But I think that's kind of like besides the point. I'm certainly not like a fanboy of his or anything like that. It's purely just the point. The point I'm making is he is hostile to the Liberal Party, Liberal government, and he's a journalist, even though a lot of people say that he isn't, mostly on the Liberal side. But Those are the only sort of facts that I'm interested in. I don't care about anything else to do with Ezra Levant or Rebel or anything like that. It's just the very point that he is hostile to the Liberal Party, and the Liberal Party doesn't like that, so they don't let him in. And I'm just trying to imagine a situation where, you know, the Liberals were in Saudi Arabia or something like that, or the, you know, Liberal government. Can you imagine them going to bat for somebody like that? Or, like I say, somebody from maybe the National Post or something like that always writes critical articles about the Liberal government. Just no way. And the reason is, she mentioned it there. Caitlin Collins mentioned it. She said they don't have a free press in Saudi Arabia. Indeed, they don't, but nor do they have a free press in Canada. A bit freer, a bit better, obviously, than Saudi Arabia, but nowhere near as free as it is in the United States.
Well, if you tune in to us at 9 a.m. on any weekday, and you see the test pattern that used to be on CBC, and that's all that is, then you know they got to us too. I don't know if anybody can remember the test pattern that used to come on at the end of the programming. But
Mark Miller's going to come bang on my door.
There'd just be a picture of Mark Miller, and it says, "You will be assimilated.
You will be legitimate. You will watch legitimate media."
Another. They go to the next one here. The second one. Another big name. No, next one. Another big name falls under the Epstein scandal here. And this is the big, high-profile lawyer there, Goldman Sachs top lawyer, Kathy Ruemmler, leaving the firm after documents revealed links to Uncle Jeffrey, as she called them. Documents revealed that Epstein paid online reputation firms to suppress negative coverage of his 2008 sex offense conviction. Waiting to see how some of this Canadian stuff plays out, because there was a CBC reporter in Edmonton that there's some emails going back and forth there too. He had fingers all over the place. Apparently there's a lot of big names that are being redacted right now, and they're trying to get them out.
Yeah. Did you just go over that Ilan Omar tweet? Because I think that's like...
Yeah, we can go back to it. If you want.
This is my first sight of that tweet, where she basically suggests that Donald Trump should be executed.
I just don't know how that's this loud. I'm not sure it's 100% if it was, but I think it's real.
It's real. I've just gone on her Twitter page. It's real. I'm looking at it now.
How that's not a threat against the president of the United States, I don't know what isn't. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and also celebrating Somalia and Somalian law. This is Sharia, sort of Islamist society, like an Islamic legal system where, you know, that's the chop the hands off theft and all that kind of thing. This what we saw with ISIS when they implemented Sharia. So she's talking about that saying that at least in Somalia. So kind of like promoting the Somali way of things over the American system. Kind of crazy. I mean, with that, once upon a time, that kind of thing would get you expelled from Congress or something like that. But I guess it's just a sign of the times, isn't it?
It's pretty wild. I mean, I don't know, like I mean, again, people call him the absolute dictator. If he was the absolute dictator, I don't think she would see the light of day. It's weird. And then again, people say that like the Canadian politicians say Trump is a threat to democracy. He takes questions from the press all day long, including Caitlin Collins. Caitlin Collins gets to go on the plane. And guess what Caitlin Collins doesn't do on the plane? She doesn't eat sausage rolls. She's there asking questions while Trump's flying. How many questions have we seen from Mark Carney while they're flying? Or he just throws a bucket of sausage rolls in the back of the plane, and nobody asks about conflicts of interest. Nobody asks about anything. And how does flip-flop Ford watch his auto sector die? Like, I mean, he's got to have a bigger brain than that to realize this EV thing is just going to end up in a battery flaming explosion.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's our show for the day. The show for look at that, we finished in 2 hours. That's our show for the week, and one of our goals was to get over 50 members right away, and that we've surpassed that now, which is great. And I Our goal for this month was to get 2 million views. I think we're past that already, so which is great. So again, if you can like, share, subscribe, get this out to as many people as possible. If more people are watching this, if more people are seeing the fraud, waste, corruption, abuse, the threats to democracy, well, the lack of democracy here in Canada, will definitely get more. And demanding MPs answer to media and not to the CBC. The CBC is no longer a media outlet. CBC is just, you can call them special programming, PR show. They should tag, they should put sponsored content on the bottom, put a bucket of sausage rolls, whatever you want to put on it.
Content creators.
Yeah, content creators, storyline. And thanks to all the regulars that have been here since the beginning too. SA Bound, Brett, Global Traveler, James, a lot of these names we see on a day-by-day basis. Ray, my 2 cents. Probably going to miss some of JCBB and all that stuff that come. Ray, lots of people we see on a regular basis. And thank you for everybody that has become a Thinking Canadian member as well. Rigged Outcome, Digsy, you know, we really appreciate it. And any contribution you can make to independent media, that would be appreciated as well. And you can go to our website. I think I just put it up there, thereallybigshow.ca. You can see all the other platforms we're on. Did we put that up there? I think, there you go. I think right there. There you go. You can also on there, you can reach out and contact. You can suggest people for interview. You can send us emails. And if anybody wants to do a recommendation for our show, if you want to send in a video, that'd be great too. You can just do like, you know, a 10-second video while you watch The Really Big Show. And we'd be much obliged. We'll even show it on the show. And if you have some birthdays and that you want to call people out, if you're a member, we'll do that for you as well. And we did the video yesterday for members. It should go up today. Is that right, Desert Fox? You going to put that up today? He says he's going to do it. We did it. Ian and I did it. So now it's just up to the Desert Fox to put it up there. So we'll see you Tuesday. And then cheese and bacon on pulled pork. I like that. And yeah, hopefully the media and the politicians that go to Tumbler Ridge are respectful of the families there that have had unbelievable loss. And may the angels watch over them right now. And such a tragedy here in Canada. Anyway, we work for a better tomorrow. We fight for Canada. And we fight for truth. I'm Jim Check with Ian Burns. And we'll see you Tuesday morning. Have a good family day as well. Anyway, enjoy.